Well, good morning, everyone. Just a quick video of a GSXR1000 2006 model that a guy who flips bikes for a living purchased and then asked me to look at because it wouldn't start. Well, the reason it wouldn't start, well, first off, the battery that was in it was absolutely dead. I'm charging it right now still. This was like 6 o'clock last night he brought it to me. So I put in my anti-gravity battery, which is bad, by the way, but it still will turn a bike over. It just doesn't have enough juice to turn over my Ducati. Put that in there, and the starter would just go click. And the only way I could get it to even click was to cross the terminals on the right here on the starter solenoid. So I'm thinking that the starter solenoid is burned out as well, because the starter works fine. But when you do all the stuff to, like, you turn on the ignition and put it in neutral and things like that, pull the clutch, it doesn't click, it just sits there and looks at you. So I think the starter solenoid is burned up. But that doesn't matter. It had several problems, several codes. First was that this plug wasn't plugged into the air filter housing. It's not in there now because I had to tear the bike down. And this sensor right here, which is your rollover sensor, when it falls on its side, it shuts off the fuel pump and the ignition so the bike can't run. This was just laying down in there. This is your cable for your exhaust. It doesn't have an exhaust anymore. It's got this straight pipe thingy. So somebody's been trying to increase the performance. You don't need to increase the performance on these bikes. It's got 180 horsepower at the wheel, for crying out loud. You don't need to increase it. Anyway, I'm blithering here. Blithering, going off script. Have this entire side of the bike apart. And here's why. I figured out really early on that we were going to have a problem with the engine turning over. So, wrong socket. Where's my 14? There's my 14. All right, let me put my 14 on here. Yep. All right, this is this crankshaft. And I'm putting about 100 pounds on that, well, maybe 75. It's not even turning, so that is stuck. However, in here, this gear way back here that I'm pointing at, this is the gear that drives your clutch basket, and the gear from the crankshaft turns that. And I can move it back and forth just that little bit. You see how it moves that just a little bit? That means this is going back on its forth on its gear, on the gear lash, which means the transmission will roll over, the engine won't. So yeah, I pulled the spark plugs out, ran the bore scope down inside. Beautiful looking bores, beautiful looking valves. There's no damage in the top of the engine or the bores. Something down the bottom locked up really badly. This oil came out of the engine. I was going to check it for debris, but there's no way to do that because this is basically brand new oil. Yes, it looks a little dark here. You pick it up on your little finger there. See how thin that is? See how clear it is? That's literally brand new oil. So whoever this guy was, he put a brand new stator and stator housing on. That's all brand new. Put a brand new starter motor. That's brand new as well. Brand new spark plugs. Brand new air filter. All this stuff was done to it. And even the speedo sensor looks brand new. Look at those wires there, so clean. So he did all this work to it, try to get it to run, and then when it wouldn't run, he put it on some kind of marketplace and said, "Yeah, I just came out and it wouldn't start, so I've been trying to get it to start." Yeah, I told my buddy, I said, when you buy a bike, ever buy a bike that doesn't roll over. It may have low compression, it may make a noise, it may have all sorts of things wrong with it, but at least have it to where it rolls over so you know what you're dealing with. This wouldn't even roll over. So, yeah. Start swing arm, yeah. Typical beat the bike to death to try to be cool kind of thing. So, by the time I get this back together and he takes it out of here, I'll have $150 worth of work in it. 4 hours looking at things and an hour putting it all back together. Yeah. I just shake my head in disgust. First that he bought this bike without actually having me look it over first. Well, she should always, oh, cat, my new cat that adopted me, and then told me she had 3 kittens. Anybody want a kitten? So yeah, he's got the really nice looking little thingy there, whatever that is. That's supposed, I think it's some kind of a tiny master cylinder. Because I can't see any of the master. That's got to be the master cylinder with this thing. It's special. It doesn't take up room. Yeah, whatever. It's got a lot of cool things on it. It's got all this carbon, lots of carbon. It's got lots more carbon. That's very expensive stuff, by the way. And a little carbon side plate for the side plate on the little cover there. Yeah, I had to break it because it was seized right here. Couldn't get the bolt out because that was in the way. It has carbon fiber, you know, protectors, all this other stuff. So the guy spent a lot of money on a junk bike. I didn't ask him how much he bought the thing for. He should never have bought it, but that's what he did. So yeah. So I'm gonna put this back together and get down the road. But I just want you guys to see what it is I do every day. Is your oil down the cylinders? No. You got to quit watching the YouTube videos, folks. When you do that, all you do is you loosen up what is stuck and probably damaged. You still got to go back in and replace parts anyway. Yeah. See, carbon fiber chain guard. He's going to part this out and make some serious bucks on this. That's literally a brand new chain. Literally. Tires are in decent shape. He could sell them to somebody else used. Well, the rear one is. The front one's junk. But yeah, he could part this out. He's got the mirror delete kit with the turn signals. Yeah, he'll make $1,000 at least, maybe $1,500 just parting this out. He can yank the head off of the engine, fuel injectors, the whole 9 yards. He can take all the top end off the engine and sell it on eBay. So he'll make some money on it. But it's just a shame to see a motorcycle put down like this. Because somebody was careless. They leaned the motor out. I know they leaned the motor out with the exhaust light, explaining something to everybody that they just don't understand. Okay, doing that is bad enough. It leans the engine out. You need to reprogram the computer so that it gets the proper amount of fuel. Why do you do this? Because when the motor gets hot and you're running it at full throttle constantly, you run into detonation. That firing in an uncontrolled manner that hammers everything from the tops of your pistons to your valves, to the valve seats, to the bearings, to the rods, to the crankshaft itself. You can break crankshafts with detonation. You can split rods with detonation. You can do all sorts of, you can burn holes in pistons or the edges of the pistons where the ring lands are with detonation. Or you can destroy your bearings because everything is just pounding, 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 pounding every time it does that on the crankshaft. And eventually you pound a bearing to the point where it expands a little bit or flattens out a little bit and you get a little clearance, and then the crankshaft starts moving up and down, and suddenly the bearing spins, and the second you stop the engine it locks it. It just seizes it up because it's so hot. It's basically welds the crankshaft to the crankcase. And the only way to get it apart is to split the cases and hammer. Sometimes you have to literally hammer the bearings out of their bearing bores. Then you got to rebore everything, realign everything. Maybe go one size over on the bearings, get a new crankshaft, the whole 9 yards. It's just a terrible mess. Just replace the engine. So when people do stuff like this, without compensating for the fuel mixture, this is what happened. I will guarantee if you do a post-mortem on the inside of this engine, you will see destroyed bearings, and they were destroyed by either lack of oil, which may have happened as well, or because of detonation from the ultra lean running engine. Don't do this. Please don't do this to your bikes. It's just, you're not gaining anything by the noise from the exhaust, and it just doesn't work out. It's never a pretty thing in the end. And that's why this thing is back on my Katana. Because the small exhaust I had on there, even though it sounded really good, you said, yeah, it sounds really good, it was impossible to tune. I could not get the carburetors to tune properly. If I could have gotten it tuned properly and the engine to run properly and not run lean or not have weird spots during acceleration, I would have kept that muffler on there, that slip-on. But I couldn't, so I put the stock one back on. And just because I wanted to tinker with something, see the holes in the end plate? Well, I originally only had the 8 outside ones, and they were 12 millimeters. That used to be a 12 millimeter hole right there. And I took it out to a 1/2 inch with a 1/2 inch drill, and then I put some 10 millimeter holes around it to make it kind of look a little cool and give it a little bit more flow out the back here, and just a little slightly larger or bigger noise footprint, so it's not quite stock sounding, because stock sounding sounded like a bus. But this is sounds a little better, a little noisier now, and but it doesn't hurt my mixture coming out of the carburetor, because it's still a baffled muffler. It comes in, goes through baffles inside, and then comes out here, which cuts the noise down. And that back pressure, that small amount of back pressure, is the difference between this engine running lean and running badly, well, not as well as I would like it to, using the, hang on, let me get this thing. Yeah, this is a clutter right now. I need to clean up my carport. But this was on there. You see, there's not much here. It's basically straight through. All the way through. It's basically a straight through passage. Not baffled at all. So that looks cool and it sounds cool, but this is better for the bike to run. It's just that simple. You don't need that. I would gain maybe 2 or 3 horsepower max on a 100 horsepower bike. Come on, who are we kidding? Who are we kidding? The ego has to go out the window when you come to this. I'm not impressing anybody. Well, I'm impressing some people who get impressed by such things, but I'm not improving anything. So stick with your stock exhaust, folks. And if you're going to do this stupidity, and that's exactly what I'm going to call it, I'm going to call it stupidity, then you pull this thing out right here. You have it tuned and flashed, or you do it on a dyno, and then it runs properly. It doesn't detonate, and you have great throttle response, and you don't run the engine lean and damage things. So that's my spiel on this kind of silliness this morning. Starting my day off by venting, because this really ticks me off. It really makes me mad. So I wish you all a great day. I hope you all learned something from this. I know I did. I learned something from every bike I have to tear down. Have a great day, and I will see you later. Oh yeah, shout out to Crash Test Goat and Company, and kudos to Crash Test Goat for not modifying the exhaust on his bike, and for taking care of it in a halfway decent manner. It's nice to know he's doing that. We should all do that. Most of us can't afford to break something and then have to replace it. You got to go with what you have. My highly modified 1199 is very highly engineered for everything I've done to it. Everything that is done on this bike was thought through before it was done. And it came out very well, and I'm very happy with it. So please, don't do this. Do this. And do this. Your bike will thank you for it. It'll last a lot longer, and you'll be a lot happier. Wish you all a great day. Ride safe. Be safe. And I'll see you next time.